I'll do my very best to get this job that I so crave.
Since the last time I've been here, I shaved my beard. You can now see all 7 of my chins. Welcome to Fanzone Debate. We got another round 2 match for you. We got Jacoby Bancroft, the number 2 seed, going up against Robert Castner, the number 7 seed. This is an exciting one. Jacoby, former champion, having a bit of a resurgence. Had a couple rough losses against some great players. Also former champions like Kirk and Cody. Then he won in round number 1 against Spence. Robert winning in round number 1 against Richard Schwartz. So both excellent matches. But again, Robert had played in a number 1 contenders match, also lost to Cody, I believe, in that match. So both maybe want to get back to fight Cody. I don't know. Brian is here. Brian, welcome to the show. How you doing, my friend? And what do you think of this matchup?
I'm doing pretty good today. I disagree with you because nobody ever wants to get back in a room with Cody. And I'm not just talking about debate. But no, I like both these guys. They both have shown they're very good at debating. Robert's had some pretty strong wins. Jacoby, obviously, he's got a good history to him. And even when he doesn't have the right picks all the time, he's very good at debating his points, though.
Yeah. And Mark, welcome back to another round 2 match. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. This will be fun. The last couple of debates Robert's been in, he's done pretty well. And then Jacoby's main staple here. I think we're in for a good one.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll kick this off. We'll start by talking to Mr. Castner. Robert, you're coming in as the lower seed, the number 7 seed, but you're taking on Jacoby. Like I said, former champion, but when I say that, he kind of like shudders a little bit, like he didn't deserve it, but I feel like he probably did. He did deserve it. He always plays well. He always shows up with a good fight. And but on the other side of things, you also always show up with a good fight. However, do you think having an infant in your home will affect your ability to play this match today, yes or no?
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Yes, I also shaved. I didn't go all the way down like you, Tim. I thought my infant child, as you referenced, would think I was a stranger and thus would not want me near her. And I don't want that at this moment in time. So yeah, it's I've been up since 4. And as you mentioned, there's an infant who's trying to sleep. So I am low energy, and I have to stay at low energy for the sake of the debate. So that'll be great for getting my points across.
Handicap match.
Intensity with low volume. It can be accomplished. Just ask Cody and Boatman in a room in a melee meeting after midnight. So we'll bring in Mr. Bancroft. Jacoby, the higher seed. Okay, let me test this theory out. Jacoby, you used to be the champion of this league. Okay, he didn't shudder, guys. I might be wrong. Jacoby, you're going up against Robert, a man who is known to have his opinions about films and then yell about them. He can't yell tonight, but he might be able to be intense. Can you handle it?
This is what's kind of funny about this. If you told me anybody else is like they can't yell, they can't get their point across, I'd be like, yes, I have an easy way into this. But I'm listening to like Robert debate, and he's so scary. He is articulate. He is very to the point. He can get it by staying calm and like throughout the whole thing, and that really just made me impressed and scared when I was like rewatching his matches. I was like, oh crap. So this is going to be a good time. This is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe his intense low energy will keep me intense and low energy. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe we'll have a civil debate. Maybe that's what's going to happen.
All right. Sounds
in front
good.
of me.
Guys, this is how the show is going to work. We are going to kick it off with the 4 prep questions. These were based off of categories that the players drafted. And then we gave them some questions to debate tonight before our very souls. So they will each get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the question, Mark, Brian, and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won the question. First person, if you get 2 out of 3 votes, you get a point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. So Mark hosted last time, and now I don't know how to do this anymore. So, guys, do you have any questions as we get into the debate?
No. Not a one.
Okay, then let's do this thing. absolutely magical. Okay, the first question that you guys drafted, it was drafted by Jacoby in the category of sci-fi icons. Your question is, what is the best supporting character in an alien movie? Jacoby, since you drafted this, you get to kick it off. You have 1 minute to open your argument. When you start talking, I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes.
So how does one define what a best character is? Is it best performance in the film? Is it the most interesting character to watch in a film? Is it best as in who best saves the day within the story of the film? Is best character the character who impacts the plot in the most interesting and compelling ways? Well, luckily, Bishop in Aliens actually is all of those things, so that makes Bishop the right choice. Bishop is not only a deeply fascinating and enjoyable character to watch, mainly because Lance Henriksen's brilliant performance keeps you unsure of his motivations, thus creating real dramatic tension, but also his presence in the movie is what gives the film its special sauce. Although he is a supporting character, Aliens does not work without Bishop on any level, whether it's story-wise, thematic-wise, or enjoyment-wise, and that's why Bishop is the best supporting character in an Alien movie. And I concede those 4 seconds.
Great. Okay. We'll move over to Robert. Robert, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So generally, I think it's hard to stand out as an ancillary figure in an alien movie because the main character, whether it's Ripley or David or whomever you have, usually occupies a lot of space and focus of the screen, being inserted into every scene, especially if they're the main survivors, holdovers from a previous movie. So when thinking on this question, I think in this context, best is someone who has their own identity within that film, but then can play into the role in which they're assigned in the featured crew. And I think Parker, played brilliantly by Yaphet Kotto in Alien, the first one, merges those two concepts together better than anyone from any other Alien film. So he fits in seamlessly with this crew, even though he and Brett are sort of outside contractors. They shoot the shit. You see them at the beginning. They really have this camaraderie with everyone without compromising on these beliefs that they should be equal in pay. And that sets up for an interesting dynamic and a sort of give and take and back and forth with the rest of the crew. He has his own motives. He has his own identity, but he still fits in seamlessly. And I think that's what makes him compelling for the sake of this small crew in Alien.
Time. Okay. All right. So we will bring in Jacoby. You guys have a 5 minute freeform. I will throw up the 1 minute warning when the time comes. If I feel like anyone is talking too long or being obnoxious generally, I will throw up the let's move on. So 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking. Go ahead.
See, I think your argument is kind of interesting because you say Parker has his own identity, but he also is going hand in hand camaraderie with Brett. And that's my problem with Parker and generally most of these characters in the first Alien movie is that they are the same. Him and Brett do create this kind of bond together, and that's a great bond. What that doesn't make Parker stand out. That makes him kind of sink into the rest of the crew that's happening around him. You could pick any one of these characters and have him kind of occupy that role that especially that Parker plays in the movie, where Bishop is a unique character to the Aliens movie, and he directly impacts the plot in an important way, and he's a standout where he's different than everybody else and does so in a really engaging and enjoyable way.
I think all the crew do have their own identity. Some actually kind of suck, especially like Lambert. It's really bad. And I think Bishop, or in this case, Parker and Brett, they occupy the space. Parker actually commands a bit of respect on the Nostromo. Like when he comes in and Ash is sitting there, he's like, "Can you get out of my seat, please?" And Ash is like, "We know who Ash is, but you know what his programming is." But he's still like, "Okay, of course I'm going to move." And then he sort of runs the bowels of the ship. They have the conversation later on where Brett is essentially like his employee, and he just agrees with everything that Parker does. So without, like, he does have a context within the ship that is very important. They can't really get off that planet without Parker. He's the one who sort of makes everything go. My problem with Bishop is that the unfortunate reality is the efficacy of his character is ruined in the first scene for a few reasons. One, it's revealed he's an artificial person right off the bat. So there's this lack of intrigue with him, and it makes kind of the knife scene less impressive. If he was a human, that would be cool, but he's a machine, so it's kind of like, of course he can do that without causing any problems. And then two, he's immediately compared to Ash from the first movie, who had the benefit of keeping that truth of being an android to himself. So Yeah.
See, but I think you're missing the point of that, and why it's actually a really good thing that Bishop is revealed to be an android right away is because we are supposed to compare him to Ash. We are supposed to doubt his motivations of whether he is good or bad, because that's an overarching theme within the Aliens universe, is the fact that whether artificial intelligence is humanity. It's what draws attention away from Burke. Bishop is a red herring that works in it, because the Burke reveal that he is the human traitor is kind of so surprising, because we have these suspicions of Bishop because of what Ash did in the film, and because Bishop, we know he's an artificial intelligence who might go bad. The fact that he turns it around by the end of the movie, by becoming the movie's best hero, by returning with the dropship, by saving Newt when she goes off of it, and by piling them out of it, it's what makes Bishop the standout character. And that's why he fits within the context of the movie, and that's what makes him so great. You're saying that Parker commands the ship with a bit of respect, and I don't think that that's what makes a best character in an Alien movie.
No, but that's part of it. He also is sort of the person who has the most logic in the scene. He's the one's like, why don't we freeze Kane after he gets... And nobody actually comes up with a solution why they shouldn't freeze him, but he's the one who has the logic of that. When the chest burster comes out, he's the one who wants to actually stab it right away, even though people are telling him, Ash tells him not to do it, but he's the one who does that. He's the one who comes up with the idea of rigging up the flamethrowers for the sake of having a weapon against the alien. He's the one who actually he saves Ripley from Ash. And actually destroys him, and he's the one who gets to burn him at the end, which is sort of this catharsis of the ship that we're sort of moving away from actually caring about what's going on with the ship. With Bishop, I don't think there's really any nuance to his performance in comparison to Ash. I don't think there's any nuance to his and Ripley's relationship, because for the majority of it, they're just staying sort of apart from each other. And his job is to sort of survey and do the science, which is exactly what Ash did. So I don't really see too much of a difference. And then while it's a good performance, he just kind of mess around and mess off at the end while Ripley does all this climactic stuff.
The problem with just Parker, as you say, is that as he has these roles in the ship, if you replaced Parker with any of the other characters in that cast, the roles would have been the same. The movie would have happened the exact same way. Parker doesn't have enough of a personality in order to stand up, while Bishop is a uniquely different character that both draws on your perceptions of the first movie with Ash. And yes, because he's similar to Ash, because he's supposed to be. You're supposed to think that he might be sinister. And the fact that you can't recognize the fact that it is a great performance, that in his first scene, you can't tell if Bishop is good or bad, is a brilliant performance by Lance Henriksen, where Yaphet Kotto, who is a tremendous actor back in the day with everything that he does, Parker is not one of his defining roles, because he's not asked to do a whole lot more besides gripe for money at the beginning and then turn around and be like, let's kill this alien, just because he's angry at the end. But that doesn't matter for all this sort of thing. Bishop is fundamentally important to the plot of the movie, and his performance sells that because of everything we know about the Alien franchise.
Time. Okay, we're going to start with Robert. Robert, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think Jacoby's shortchanging what Yaphet Kotto does in this. Yeah, he is this real person. He feels like he's part of this crew. He's a contractor, but he's on the outside. And yeah, he's griping about the money because that's logical and realistic in comparison to his performance. And yeah, these people in the crew who he shouldn't care about, he does care about, and he's ready to sack up essentially at the end and wants to do what he can. He's even trying to save Lambert at the end, trying to fight an alien one-on-one, and she's just too dumb to get out of the room. With Bishop, yeah, there's a lot of comparison to Ash, and I understand why there's supposed to be this duality to it, but it doesn't hit for me. He doesn't do a lot of the heavy lifting. He's sort of off to the side for the majority of the movie. The main climax really just features Ripley killing the Queen, and then he just sort of F's off, and he's supposed to be there to save her, but he's not there because he doesn't know how to park. And then the Queen Alien gets on the ship, and he doesn't realize it, even though he's an android, which seems like a bit of weird logic to it. So he just seems to not really hit home as a good character, whereas Parker does.
All right, we'll go over to Jacoby. Jacoby, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
The best supporting character in an Alien film is Bishop, and I don't think it's close. I think Bishop makes the movie interesting and elevates it to the classic it is today. Bishop represents the idea the Alien franchise likes to explore, which is about whether artificial intelligence can truly be trusted. And he also serves as the linchpin of the entire plot, as the Burke traitor reveal is so effective because we don't know whether we can trust Bishop or not, which goes back to the amazing performance that Lance Henriksen does. Robert is telling me that Bishop doesn't do a whole lot at the end. He is everything at the end end of the movie. His dramatic reveal about how he thinks that you leave him, that they left Ripley and Newt behind, but then he makes his dramatic return. The fact that he sacrificed himself to go out to the dropship and expresses humanity while he does that, and the fact that while he gets impaled and becomes a gooey mess, that he actually saves Newt from being sucked out into space. Robert was saying like, oh yeah, he kind of saves Lambert at the end. Well, my character saves Newt at the end. I mean, without Bishop, and if you cut him out of it, the entire movie falls apart, where Parker is really expendable to anybody else in that plot.
Time. Okay. We will bring in the judges. I had to get up twice in the middle of that to let my dog out, and then I forgot my board. But I brought the computer with me, so I heard everything. All right.
I was like, we can do that again if you want. I mean,
yes, please. Yeah. Let's do it again. You really want to go out again, Bucky? My God. All right. Judges ready? Yep. Okay. I'm going to go first. I thought this was pretty good. I think that both very astutely from the get-go kind of defined what they expect out of the best supporting character and gave me a lot of good reasons why each of their characters were the best. At the end of the day, I went with Jacoby. I think that Jacoby's takedowns of Parker, Park, right? That was the character's name? Yaphet Kotto. I know him as Yaphet Kotto in that movie. We're just a little bit better than Robert's takedowns of Lance Henriksen. I love these movies, I swear to God. And I listened to you guys. But Robert's whole closing about how he just kind of like F's off at the end and then I was like kind of on board with Robert, but Jacoby was able to kind of jump back and be like, he doesn't just F off, he does this. And I thought Jacoby's closing was really strong of saying like, if you take this character out, the movie falls apart. And if you take Yaphet Kotto's character out of Alien, the movie still pretty much happens the way that it happens. So I thought that was a pretty strong point. Brian, where are you going and why?
Well, I did listen to the debate, and all 50 times I said the characters' names. So
shush.
I'm an educated pick here. No, this is actually kind of what I was afraid of, in that we've had some real landslide debates. This one's starting out in the first question. It's just really close. So I did end up going with Jacoby. For me, I kind of latched on to some stuff in his opening. He said how, it's the best on several different levels. And then like Tim already mentioned about how Jacoby was talking about how if Parker wasn't there, another character would kind of just play that same role, whereas Bishop kind of is pivotal and nobody else can really do the same role to him.
Yeah. Mark, where your vote doesn't count, but where would you have gone?
I actually would have gone with Robert. I think I kind of liked his attacks on Jacoby's. I think on Jacoby's pick, I think a little bit more. I also kind of liked his breakdown, at least of Parker as a character, of kind of the one who kind of had the most logic in situations. Maybe it would have been different, like if they had listened to him. I kind of latched onto that a little bit. And then also kind of how Bishop, I think, was a character is, I think, more of a, like he was kind of used as more of a device to kind of push the plot forward. I think he was kind of making a roundabout point about that. And I think that one kind of swayed me.
Okay. Well, Jacoby does win the point. We are going to move on to the next question, which was drafted by Robert in the category of comedy. And the question is, what is the funniest moment in a Jonah Hill comedy? Robert, we're going to kick it off with you. You get 1 minute to open when you start talking.
There's a treasure trove of options when you think about Jonah Hill comedies. We all know comedy is subjective, and I'm not going to say that one scene's funny while the other one isn't as we're going through this debate, because they're both designed to be comedic by nature. But I chose the scene where Seth is imagining buying/stealing alcohol in Superbad. And the reason I did it is because within the sequencing of the three scenarios Seth dreams about in the store where McLovin works, there isn't a reliance on one type of comedy. Any type of comedy you want is represented within this period. Sight gags with an $80 bill with Ulysses S. Grant on it. Physical comedy where the old lady's hit in the back of the head with a bottle. Gross out comedy where Seth is picturing the security guard cutting his throat with a bottle. Memorable lines such as, "Enjoy your remaining years. I will. Enjoy fucking Jules. I will." absurdist comedy with the whole bit. It's all represented within my moment. And no, it's not a scene. The whole scene is when McLovin comes in, they all talk about it. So it is a moment. This particular part within the whole scene has everything that you would want for a comedy, especially one that features Jonah.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Jacoby. Jacoby, you get to go next. 1 minute when you start talking.
Yeah, funny is subjective, but I do wholeheartedly believe that Janko's reaction to finding out that Schmidt slept with the captain's daughter and going on his insane explosion of utter glee is the funniest moment in a Jonah Hill comedy. Everything about this joke, I think, is perfect, and I think it works. You have the centerpiece, which is Tatum at his most excited, elevating a simple reaction to outlandish proportions, which is already funny, but then you add in Jonah Hill's and Ice Cube's reaction, where Ice Cube isn't taking his murder face off of Jonah Hill, and Jonah Hill is sitting there like a dead man waiting for execution as Janko laughs hysterically in the background. And those are like the perfect additions to the joke. But then you have like the sprinkling of cleverness around the sequence that truly pushes the sequence to top tier. Like the sound of the Velcro of the bulletproof vest before you actually see it. And it taking Janko about 3 seconds too long to piece it together, accompanied by the sound effect, the ding sound when he does, and then he just explodes. And all of that kind of creates this moment, which is definitely the funniest.
Time. All right. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So Jacoby, I think it's interesting the scenes we pick because I think we both have partner scenes within our movie. My scene's partnered with the scene that comes with McLovin actually going to get the alcohol, and then your scene's partnered with the scene that actually happens before it, which is the parents' weekend when we find out that Maya is actually the captain's daughter. And I'm not saying that one isn't necessarily funnier, but I will say that your previous scene, which sets up how we get the reaction to what Janko's going through in your scene, I think has a lot more comedic elements with the parents being brought in. Jonah Hill actually gets to cook a little bit more. We're not used to it, so we're not like we haven't seen everything already happen yet. So I just think that in regards to my scene, it segues up to the other scene better. As opposed to yours, where we already had the reactions, and this is just we're relying on Channing Tatum to tell us kind of how he feels.
Which he does, I think, pretty expertly and kind of makes this scene into the top tier comedy that it is. But it's also funny how you say it's about the pairing to the scenes before, and like my scene had more comedic elements in a different scene besides my scene. I think your scene doesn't have enough comedic elements in your 3 sections. The problem with committing to a bit that has 3 separate segments is that all 3 need to be funny. And I just don't think that those are clever or funny enough in order to really justify it being the funniest scene. I mean, like the $80 scene is maybe worth a smile. And I think there's more clever comedy out there besides an old lady saying the word fuck. I mean, like, I think that there's something more that you can do. I think it is more impressive and funnier when you can take a joke, which is just Janko laughing hysterically and bringing down the whole house, but stretching that to such an absurd limit and finding the funny around that situation that makes it so hilarious.
It's funny you mention that, but really the whole basis of your scene is based around the fact that Channing Tatum is just dancing around happily and yelling out obscenities, which is not necessarily everybody's cup of tea for what they think is funny. And it really doesn't, you mentioned that there's these subtleties with Jonah Hill and Ice Cube. In the other scene, Jonah Hill gets to cook a little bit. He doesn't really even get to do anything. Yeah, he puts on a bulletproof vest. That's about it. Everything's relying on Channing Tatum having to dance around and you going through it through his eyes. Like he's the voyeur for you. Whereas in my scenes, but Jonah Hill is kind of the crux of everything. And I know it doesn't necessarily have to be that Jonah Hill is the basis of everything, but if it's a Jonah Hill comedy, I want him to be able to cook a little bit, and he gets a chance to do that in something that's completely absurdist and goofy. Yours is goofy, but it's just kind of standard as a goofiness. There's nothing like outlining about it.
See, no, I think you're misreading the situation. You say Jonah Hill doesn't have a lot to do in my scene as compared to yours. I think both of our scenes deal with Jonah Hill being tremendously nervous. And I think yours is 2007 Jonah Hill, where, it's 2007 Jonah Hill. But my comedy is, and my moment is seeing the dead look and nervousness in his eyes where he can't quite make eye contact with Dickinson, as he knows while Channing Tatum is exploding around him that this situation is getting worse and worse. I think it is a better comedic moment. And I think Jonah Hill's performance is the crux of both of ours. I do agree with that, but he helps elevate my thing. Well, yours, he doesn't deliver on the goods of what needs to be funny. And I just think he does it in my scene better than yours.
But I think with yours, it's really just bombast from Channing Tatum. That's why people like it. It's because it's someone who you understand it, because we already had the previous scene. This reveal is all new to him. So that's why I think it brings it down a little bit. But in terms of I think comedy also has to do with thinking about sort of tragedy and time. That's sort of the usual equation, right? And there's parts in my scene where it's not just completely off the wall goofiness. There are nuggets of Jonah Hill acting, when he's going to take the vodka and the security guard's like, I wouldn't do it, kid. You don't understand. I never had a choice. So there's parts of where you can see what makes Jonah Hill a good actor, and compare that to this imaginative thing. Plays really well when you juxtapose those together.
I do think he's doing a better acting in my scene. You talk about bombast out of Channing Tatum. When we talk about your scene is about bombast. It's about shock, right? It's about an old lady saying the word fuck. It's about an old guard slashing him in the throat, and it building up to these extreme situations. And I just think those extreme situations, it takes too long to get there and it doesn't work. Whereas in fact, yes, it is reliant on Channing Tatum. But the reason that it's so funny is because this is a simple reaction where you think, yes, he's going to find out what it's, how bad it is, that the fact that he fucked the captain's daughter, and he's going to laugh. But no, he takes it to an extreme level that you didn't even know that he was going to get. And it shows the camaraderie and the partnership between these two, and why it is so great and funny, because everybody in this scene is involved together to the same joke. It's not serving just lackluster bits and gags that don't build correctly into a really great punchline.
But
because you say it's about tragedy, but I think jokes are about performance and editing, and that's where mine succeeds.
But it does build into something, as I mentioned. There's a partner scene to it where you can connect what's going on with the absurdity of what happens to Jonah Hill, and then how it sort of plays into the real life thing that happens to McLovin. But they are distinct and they can stand on their own.
Time. Okay. We are going to start with Jacoby. Jacoby, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Everyone kind of knows explaining why a joke is funny just doesn't work, because again, comedy is subjective. But I do think if you actually kind of break down our scenes and kind of explain why these are funny, you can see all the right pieces in my scene that show why it's funnier than Robert's scene. My joke doesn't just rely on just kind of bit gags with a bill or an old lady saying grotesque things, or an old lady getting hit by a bottle, or just a violent throat slash. My joke is funny because it has three fantastic performances doing three kind of different funny things, while also being edited and shot in a way to maximize the funny and really capitalize on everything in the scene. My nervous Jonah Hill is funnier than Robert's nervous Jonah Hill, because it is more subtle as the life is draining from his face. My exaggerated bombast situation of Janko exploding with laughter is what sells my scene and makes it better. And I think that is funnier than Jonah Hill getting his pretend throat slash. I think my sound design and everything around my scene and my setup and my punchline is funnier than Robert's.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Robert. Robert, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Jacoby mentions that his scene has a bunch of different parts, but the problem is that the parts don't coalesce, because all we're looking at is Channing Tatum yelling obscenities and being gleeful, and that's great. But it doesn't really have legs after a few viewings. My scene, as I said, takes all different aspects of comedy, marries them together, and the good part is that it segues up to an important other scene in Superbad, but it is able to stand on its own. It's not just about being crude. It's about having sight gags. It's about having physical comedy. It's about blending them all together in one space where you see a nervous Jonah Hill doing a bit of acting, more acting than he gets a chance to do in the 22 Jump Street scene. And like I said, in the 22 Jump Street scene, we had a different scene prior to that, which plays into the awkwardness of that situation better than Jacoby's scene. My scene has all different kinds of comedy that you would want. It's all brought together based on Jonah Hill as the crux, the focal point. His nervousness and his nervous energy brings it, and every little smaller actor within that plays their part to perfection, and that's why it's the funniest.
Fine. Okay. All right, we'll bring in the judges.
Sleepy.
Judges ready?
Yep.
All right, Mark, you're kicking us off.
Cool. And I do really like this fight. I love both of these moments, and I kind of feel like whenever it came to kind of defending the funny parts of kind of saying your scene moment was funny, it felt a little bit kind of like whatever, because both these scenes are pretty funny. I think I kind of went on the attacks a little bit more, and I feel like Jacoby kind of had the better attacks to Robert's scene. Honestly, to me, I think there was probably a bit of a knockout blow in the middle of this one where I think Robert had brought up that his scene is Jacoby's scene is all bombast, is all excitement, and then I feel like Jacoby just kind of hit right back and like, well, your scene just relies entirely on bombast. So like, I feel like he kind of turned the argument around on him, and at that point, I think that's kind of where Jacoby won the point for me.
Okay. I also love both these. I love both these movies. 22 Jump Street better than 21 Jump Street. I stand by it. But I do love both these movies and both these scenes. I went with Robbie C's. And I think, sorry, that comedy was not subjective. So I do think that I agree with Mark in the sense that I thought that I also went with kind of the attacks. I thought that Robert's attacks on Jacoby, though, actually were really strong. And I bought into that whole argument of like, anytime anybody's like, you picked a thing from a thing, but this other thing in that thing is better than the one that you picked. I thought that Robert sold me on the fact that like, if Jacoby had picked the moment where the Parents' Day thing with Ice Cube and Jonah Hill, that Jonah Hill acting better in that, the awkward humor part of that is better in that scene than in his, and that the bombasticness of just Channing Tatum yelling is all that scene has to give. I bought into that with Robert, but I will say I do like Jacoby's scene better. That scene makes me laugh every single fucking time. But I went with Robert. I thought the argument was just a bit better. Brian, you're deciding it.
Yeah. Like they both said, it's hard to talk about comedies because it's subjective and not everybody finds the same things funny. Luckily, I found both of these funny, so that wasn't an issue. I did end up going for Jacoby. For me, again, it was super close. I think that what tipped me in Jacoby's favor was me was talking about there's kind of like the lots of different levels to his. There's like, there's Jonah Hill showing his discomfort. Ice Cube's got that kind of anger building in him, and then Channing Tatum especially. And what makes it for me is he pointed out that moment where he just goes ding, and just that really sets it off.
All right, so Jacoby wins point number 2. He's up 2-0. We're going to move over to the third category. This was drafted by Jacoby in the category of action adventure. And the question is, what action sequel improved the most on its original? So Jacoby, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Improving on the original is an interesting way to, I think, frame a question. But when it comes down to it, the original Mad Max is a slow, low budget, at times dull film compared to Mad Max Fury Road, which is a borderline visual masterpiece that stands as one of the defining American action movies of the 21st century. There is no better glow up than this. One of the reasons I picked Fury Road is because this is all George Miller's baby. It's a story of how a director's singular vision and passion was able to evolve the franchise while still remaining true to what the original movie was about. The story and theme and director and writer remain the same, but it was only after 35 years did Miller truly get to let loose and expand on his original and tell the story he wanted to tell. He didn't have to pivot his franchise, but rather he got to build off the original and improve it on every single way. The chasm between Mad Max and Mad Max Fury Road is one of the biggest jumps in quality in any series ever. And I can't wait to talk about more Mad Max.
Okay, we're going to move over to Robert. Robert, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
There's an acknowledgement, most people recognize it because it's the truth, that for the Fast and Furious franchise, it didn't really morph into the global phenomenon it was until Fast 5. Fast and the Furious, the original, was designed to be this localized LA action film. It was essentially Point Break with cars. They tried to recreate it with Too Fast, Too Furious. No Vin Diesel, didn't work. They tried to do sort of an anthology with Tokyo Drift, but they had to bring Vin Diesel back. It had no teeth. Fast and Furious, we start ramping up a little bit, but it doesn't really all meld together until we get to Fast Five. Everything that relates to the greatness of Fast and Furious, the craziness of the stunts, the over the top action sequences, the melding of the crews together, of everything that happened before it, all of that's built in from Fast Five, and it always just ramps up from there. It's where we get the best characters, it's where we get the best action scenes, it's where we get the most connection between our characters and new ones brought in between the old ones. Everything pivots from Fast Five for everything that we have in the Fast and Furious franchise now.
Okay, Fast Five versus Mad Max Fury Road. Excellent choices, gentlemen. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So one of my issues with Fast Five is that while it's fun and did set up the franchise for great things, it's still in a weird transition phase where it hasn't fully evolved yet. There's a lot of the movie besides that ending that does not work or just kind of feels a little weird to me, like super Southern, super serious Hobbs, or the Brian and Mia romance subplot, which is worse in Fast Five than it is in the original, or extra characters, as you say, like, oh, all these characters are great, but there's too many characters who need to be cut down from the team because they don't really make it. It doesn't improve on the original as it does test the water for an eventual where it is today. I recognize that it's great and it's a lot of fun, but it's not the vast improvement over the original. Whereas mine, Mad Max Fury Road, is an improvement in terms of everything, in acting, stunts, story, excitement. Everything is better in Fury Road than it is in the original Mad Max.
I don't think it's very much of an improvement on the original, because Mad Max Fury Road is not essentially a sequel of Mad Max. It is essentially its own movie that just features a Mad Max character and is in Australia. I mean, that's basically sort of the connective tissue. If you would have picked something like Road Warrior, where there is a direct connection and you understand sort of the build up from where Mad Max had experienced with the loss of his family leading to that, and in this post-apocalyptic society, I would understand that. But Mad Max Fury Road, it's basically just been called Furiosa. I know we have a Furiosa movie, but it was basically just Furiosa with a side character named Max. Yeah, we were able to improve 35 years after the fact because technology had improved and because George Miller got to take all this time to make it. But I think you're shortchanging what we have with Fast Five. I mean, original was a very simple story. We're now graduated from that point, melding everything together from the previous ones to make an interesting spy thriller that we never thought we could have got with cars. We never thought that was a possibility until Fast Five. And those plots you were talking about, like the Brian and Mia romance, that was happening in the previous movie. So it's building up to that. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has a place to play within Fast Five. I think you're shortchanging that.
The fact that you say Fury Road doesn't have connective tissue to Mad Max and it's not a sequel is, I think, a little preposterous, because Mad Max is a story about a post-apocalyptic society moving on, and it be given over to these gang of bikers and these who are very furious, driving a lot of cars, and has Hugh Kersburn playing the villain Toe Cutter. Fury Road also has Hugh Kersburn playing Immortan Joe coming back. So you see that's an improvement on what it was in the original. While the fact that Mad Max, yeah, and you say that Max isn't really a character, but that is also the improvement of what it's doing to him. Mad Max as the central character, as proven in the first movie, might not work as effectively because it takes him so long to get mad, right? To actually have effective things happen to him. Whereas in Mad Max Fury Road, he is mad from the start and he gets to play the supporting role and be this mad, insane wild card to the situation. These are very two close connected movies in terms of theme and story and everything. Whereas Fast Five has to pivot directly. I understand that it's pivot and the pivot was good for the franchise, but the fact that Fast Five had to cut out any car racing scene in order to be better, I just don't think is that much of an improvement. While as Mad Max Fury Road embraces what made the original better and then makes it better.
But if Mad Max wasn't great on its own, they did have two direct sequels to them right after that. And yeah, I mean, Mad Max Fury Road, it's metal, it's great. I mean, it has a lot of cool action, but I think that's mostly just a basis on the fact that technology had improved more than anything. I don't think it has little to do with the full outline and the makeup of the movie. It's centered around a very thin premise in comparison to the other ones. There is a car race within Fast Five. It's when they get the police cars and they're betting the $1 million as they're trying to gather those for the sake of the heist. And then we get the whole subplot of Vin letting Brian win the race as a sort of a baby gift, and then he reveals the baby thing, which is a big deal and sort of brings the crew together. This is the first movie where we have all the crazy stunts, driving off the cliff. We have the crazy thing with dragging a safe through the streets of Rio. It wasn't realized until we got to Fast Five. Wasn't realized it was a possibility that we could bring all of this together and make it something cool and international and global phenomenon as it was.
I agree with you. How you first said to me that Mad Max Fury Road is this it's kind of explosion, and this is this great visual feast of a movie, because yeah, that's what makes it the improvement. It takes these car stunts, which were very low budget in the first movie, and then makes it the best car stunts in almost the history of action cinema. That's why it is an improvement over what happened. Yes, Fast Five is all the greats, like the fact that it has a car race with the four of them is there, but right before that, they cut out the scene of them winning cars because they're like, let's race, and they cut it out because they had to, because the franchise had to get away from what it was before. And yes, while that is impressive, I just think improving on the original, it is more impressive when you take the same ideas that are presented in the first movie and carry them through to fruition, where it expands into something great and exciting and monumental as it was in this one. So I guess we have 8 seconds.
I just think there's more to upgrade than just the quality of the action, how it's shot.
How it's shot. Strike it from the record. We're going to go to Robert. Robert, you get 1 minute to close when you start talking.
I think with Fast Five, I think there's something about improving based on upping the scope of what it could be from the original, which was very grounded, into something that could be international, something that all audiences could see, have connection with it, with the characters, and how that's played up through ramping up the danger, the absurdity, these now crazy contrived plot devices that are now normal, and how that's been and managed for over a decade. With Mad Max Fury Road, it's not really a connective tissue to Mad Max at all. It's in a post-apocalyptic society with these different gangs that we have. Sure, it is a little bit more metal. It's shot a little bit better, but I think it's more than just about how the technology improves and how George Miller got more of a chance to meld it. There's a lot of herky-jerkiness to it. There's a little bit of reliance on CG more than in the original. I think that takes away from what the original wanted as this sort of grounded, low-budget thing. And I think it really is just sort of Mad Max in name. It's mostly about Furiosa and how she manages the situation.
All right, move over to Jacoby. Jacoby, you get 1 minute when you start talking.
I think the original Fast and Furious has a good ending, but a messy middle section, kind of a romance that we don't super care about, and a lackluster final villain. And I think Fast 5 also has a good ending, a messy middle section, a romance that we don't necessarily care about with Brian and Mia, and a lackluster final villain. That's not an improvement. That's in essence doing the same thing, but it has to betray what it did beforehand in order to get there. The OG Mad Max suffers from a low budget and a snail's pace throughout. Max isn't even mad until the final 15 minutes. Compare that to Fury Road, and it's the biggest improvement between two films that you can imagine. The fact that it upgrades, that Robert's saying like, oh yeah, because it relies too much on crazy car stunts. Yeah, that's what makes Mad Max movie great, and that's why it improves on the original after all the bad ones in the last one. The villain in my movies is even played by the same actor, but Immortan Joe is so much better than Toe Cutter, hence improvement over the original. Fast 5 didn't so much as improve as it did pivot away from the core roots of the series, while Fury Road embraced the roots, delivered a Hall of Fame action movie masterpiece, and just a stunning movie experience overall, while Fast 5 is the franchise still figuring itself out.
Still figuring itself out, Jacoby, please. My God, strike it from the record, please. Holy cow.
I think I got still in there.
It will not affect my vote at all, but I watched Fast 5 last night, and that movie slaps. All right. Brian, you're kicking this one off.
All right. I love both these picks. I love both of these movies. But honestly, I think Mad Max Fury Road is my favorite of the two by quite a wide margin. That being said, I thought Robert made the bigger argument here. As far as the actual topic here, I think that he made some good points about how Fury Road was a big leap in terms of the technology and the look of it. And George Miller was able to do things he wanted to do, but whereas his pivoted, which yes, Jacoby said that he had to pivot away, but that pivot did result in a huge improvement and a change in the way that the whole franchise went. And so my point goes to Robert.
All right, Mark, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I did go with Jacoby though. I feel like as a whole, I just kind of bought into Jacoby's argument in the sense that everything about Fury Road is bigger, and it stays with kind of the true roots of kind of what it is. And I think most of kind of Robert's hits, at least on it, doesn't. There's not really a ton of connective tissue and like kind of stuff like that. I just didn't really kind of buy. So I think as a whole, I had to go with Jacoby on this one.
Oh, goody. That means I get to decide this one. Not a clean sweep yet. Interesting. Do I want to prolong it, or do I just want to say? I'll just say it. I went with Castner, the friendly ghost. We're moving on to the next one, and I think that I think that Robert did a really good job of taking down most of Jacoby's digs against Fast Five. Jacoby brought up, they even had to cut out the race scene, and Robert was like, there is still a race scene, and then Jacoby was like, nah, well, not that race scene. And I get Robert was kind of mostly going after like the technical stuff, but I thought that Robert was able to very well explain, like, yes, Fury Road is like bigger and louder and more metal, but Fast Five takes the core of what the original was and just expands on it in this huge way, improving it in pretty much every aspect, from like low-level action movie to big international action movie with cars, girls, romance, action. Like, I think he just explained that really, really well. So I went with Robert. It means Robert gets a point and is still down going into the next question. So we are going to move on to said question. Robert needs to hit this in order to send it to the bonus. And I'm excited about this question. I think this one is pretty cool. Props to Kirk Kolkowski. I believe he wrote this one. What one Worlds of DC character should carry over to James Gunn's DC universe? So, Robert, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I chose John Cena's Peacemaker, and I chose him because I don't ever think John Cena had the right blend of comedy, action, hero, circumstance villain that suits his style, persona, and physique. Since he made the transition from a wrestler to an actor until he found the role of Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. He's able to blend James Gunn's style, this quirky humor, bloody gore, that's the staple of his kind of movies, and did it so successfully that he was able to be teased in a post-credit, which ended up being a critically acclaimed TV show. I'm not going to talk about the TV show. I'm just saying that there was a setup, a segue for John Cena's Peacemaker to be in more James Gunn things. And I think because of how it is he encapsulated that role, even though there's not a whole lot when you're in a Suicide Squad movie where you get a whole lot of focus on you. And that's speaks to the potential of what it is that John Cena can do, that James Gunn is thinking about where it is he can slot in later on in his universe. So that's why I chose John Cena's Peacemaker.
Time. All right. I'll move over to Jacoby. Jacoby, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think there are a lot of big reasons why Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn should carry over to James Gunn's DC universe. I think The Suicide Squad proved that Gunn knows how to write and treat the character by having her grow from her past experiences and evolve as a person while still keeping things chaotic and fun. I think Harley Quinn is uniquely chaotic enough to transition from Worlds of DC to James Gunn's DCU after the universe reboot without it being weird. I think Margot Robbie gives an incredible performance that has grown throughout the years, proving she has an amazing range, more so than other Worlds of DC actors. And now that the character has reached this fully independent version of herself, this is her at her most interesting. And after all that work, this deserves to be explored more. And frankly, Harley Quinn has grown to be such a big name staple DC character that the universe has to introduce a version of Harley eventually, because she is that important. And after everything we've seen of Robbie, it would be wrong for her to not have in the role. So that's why Margot Robbie should carry over.
Time. All right. Excellent choices, gentlemen. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So Jacoby, we've had 3 turns already with Margot Robbie in the role of Harley Quinn, and she served herself pretty well. I don't particularly like her performance. I prefer sort of the animated versions, even Kaylee Cuoco's Harley Quinn and the Harley Quinn show. I prefer a little bit more, but I don't really see that there's more that she can give to it. After all this, she even had a star turn in her own movie, and while it was fun, it didn't really have a great lasting impact. John Cena's Peacemaker, we only got him within that one movie, and like I said, there was a tease for it. I think there's more to be had given exploring his background, how it is he ended up at Belle Reef potentially, and how the events of Court of Maltese is going to shape him as a hero, villain, assassin moving forward. And I think the role of hero, villain, assassin in James Gunn is something that we're not going to get from anybody else because he's sort of a name that can fit in, whereas the other ones we've had are going to be too busy and they don't really fit in as well. So
I just think that when you say about the role that you're not impressed by the role, John Cena, I will agree, is a very gifted comedic actor with hilarious comic timing. But when he has to be a serious badass, though, he is a block of wood. If it was like if you need one character who was brought over who can actually sell being funny, scary, charming, and intimidating, and can actually show emotion and sell it, it would be Robbie. The fact that you want to bring Peacemaker over, the problem with Peacemaker is that there's a joke in the Suicide Squad where Bloodsport meets Peacemaker, and he says, and they argue with each other because their powers are exactly the same. A mercenary with whose hands anything is a deadly weapon. The joke is that they're the same person. The mercenaries in DC's universe are kind of a dime a dozen. Anybody can fill the Peacemaker spot, but Harley Quinn is the better, more fully realized character, and she is one of a kind. And after everything Margot Robbie did in the role, she needs to carry over. Peacemaker is expendable.
Well, that's the joke, but that's what I was saying. I was like, we can't get people like Will Smith or Idris Elba to be further along in James Gunn's Suicide Squad or DC universe. You're saying that he's sort of a block of wood, but there's that scene when he and Bloodsport are going hand in hand when they're going through the rebel camp, and they're trying to one up each other with how it is that they kill each other. And the lines that John Cena throws out, he's like, people don't like a braggart. He's like, yeah, unless what they're bragging about is dope as fuck. And I mean, like, those things do speak to how his personality can meld with the badassery. I was looking at the slate of what James Gunn has. There's a Waller spinoff that's coming. There's something called The Authority, where these morally gray heroes protect the planet by extreme means. Both of these sort of projects I could see John Cena, and I was looking through the slate. I don't know where Margot Robbie fits in. There's the Batman too, but her tone doesn't fit into Matt Reeves' Batman. I'm not sure where she would fit in with what's coming up.
You seem to be ignoring the fact there's Batman Brave and the Bold and all that stuff coming out. And because Harley Quinn is part of DC's most fundamental location, which is Gotham City, that is an element of the DC universe that absolutely needs to be explored. I'm arguing that in the grand scheme of things, when things are going to be rebooted, Harley Quinn needs to be part of it, while Peacemaker, on the other hand, can be replaced by any of the other name brand DC mercenaries that are happening. Yeah, sure, like Peacemaker can fit in with the Authority. Like, I don't understand why that's the argument where Harley Quinn actually interacts with the big ones, with Wonder Woman, with Batman, with Superman, with everybody. Harley Quinn is an essential part of the universe. And for the fact that, you're agreeing with my point that John Cena is very funny in the role, but I'm talking about later on in the movie where he has to sell Killing Ratcatcher on that. He is so bad in that movie. And the fact that you say you're not impressed by Margot Robbie's performance, how she can go from being the scared girlfriend to what she is now, which has so much emotion to that, is crazy, because she is actually growing in the role, and now we at the fully realized where she deserves to keep going forward.
I would venture to say that she grew more between what had happened in the events of Air Suicide Squad leading to Birds of Prey and what happens in Birds of Prey than anything that happens in the Suicide Squad, which I think is just sort of somewhat of a retread. It's a better made movie, so it seems better, but I would say that it's very similar. We're also, like I said, we have Kaylee Cuoco in an animated version, and then we have Lady Gaga going to play Harley Quinn in the Joker sequel. I know they're not in the universe, but I'm saying that's so many competing adaptations. And I think Gunn likes to do a thing where he brings people out from the muck and tries to create eyes on more unpopular characters, those of which he has more of a connection to, which he could. I mean, he brought all these crazy characters into the Suicide Squad that we didn't see. Harley Quinn was like one of the only ones he could bring over because he needed that cachet. But I don't think that speaks to how that can play further along in the DCU.
You were saying at the very beginning there that, yeah, she has gone through some transition phases in her early movies. And yeah, she has. I am agreeing with that. I'm saying that the fact that she has transitioned from the Suicide Squad to Birds of Prey to Suicide Squad, and the fact of what she's done with the work kind of propels it. It creates this forward momentum where she deserves to keep going, where Peacemaker's story doesn't need to be told.
Time. All right. We are going to go to Jacoby first. Jacoby, you get a 1 minute closing when you start talking.
If Peacemaker for some reason vanished and never returned, I don't think that would sink the new DCU. He's not even important enough to recast him and do something different with his character, because you can just introduce another big buff mercenary and give him almost the exact same personality. A lot of people can be quirky, but it takes a lot to actually be dramatic in the role, which John Cena kind of failed to do in this movie. But the DCU needs the one-of-a-kind Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn fits in anywhere and can interact with mostly anyone. Heroes, villains, etc. The important players of the DCU. She's an important key cornerstone of DC's most important locations, which is Gotham City, which needs and deserves to be built out and fully realized. Again, you need her, and Robbie has done such an incredible job in all aspects of the character that it's very tough to recast her and essentially erase all the character growth that she's gone through in all of her appearances. John Cena as Peacemaker is fun, but he essentially operates in a less important corner of the DC universe than Harley Quinn does. And if we had to pick one or the other to carry over, it is Margot Robbie's. The other side situations don't count when this one is the most important one.
The most important one. Strike it from the record. I kind of want to strike. I kind of want to strike Margot's Robbie's too, but I can't. Okay, 1 minute closing for you, Robert, when you start talking.
I think Jacoby was sort of talking out of both sides of his mouth. He recognized John Cena's potentiality and what it is he could do, but he also said that you could find anybody else to do that. But I think only someone can embolden and embody that sort of physique with that timing. We need to see more awkward dances. We need to see large man in tidy whities. We need to see how far he will go as an indication for fighting for peace. We need to know what the impact of getting shot's going to have and how killing an American hero could give him some PTSD. There's potentiality there. I don't see much potentiality with Margot Robbie going forward within James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I never found her particularly compelling. I think she would be better if she had a suitable Joker to play off of, and it wasn't Jared Leto. We're not sure if it could be Barry Keoghan. So I think she's going to lose her effectiveness without having a dynamic in that sort of relationship. Yeah, she did progress, but from the movies that didn't feature James Gunn. It was just because Margot Robbie's a pretty good actress, but I don't see how that can play off to what we have in the slate going forward. Whereas we saw that they set up for John Cena and Peacemaker as this sort of rebel wild card hitman to do more in James Gunn's DCU.
James Gunn's DCU. Strike it from the record. Okay.
Good match, Kobe.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes, this has been great, guys. I'm ready. Are you guys ready? Great. Like I said, great match. This has been fantastic. Split decisions down the whole thing. I'm gonna go with J Bands. I think that both were great choices. I just think that Jacoby's whole point about like the DCU going forward with James Gunn and needs a Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn will be missed if we don't have it, and Margot Robbie is perfect for that. Specifically the DCU. Whereas if we don't have Peacemaker in these movies, we're not gonna miss anything. I thought that was really strong. And Robert kept bringing up, where would she fit? That she wouldn't fit in Matt Reeves' movies. She wouldn't fit in the Todd Phillips Joker sequel. I didn't really take much weight into that. It was tough. I did go with Jacoby, though. Brian, where are you going and why?
Well, I know how much Mark likes to decide ties.
Great.
But he won't have to. I voted Jacoby. For me, it's kind of a lot of the same things. I first of all, I think Robert did a real good job of arguing Peacemaker. I thought he did a great job walking that tightrope where he's like, I'm not talking about the TV show, I'm not
I
talking
know.
about other movies like Joker, but I'm going to reference that they're there. Just I thought you did a very good job actually of doing that. But Jacoby, kind of the same thing that hit Tim when he talked about, when Jacoby talked about, Harley Quinn is such a big presence. She's definitely going to be part of the universe. She has to be part of the universe, and it would be wrong for it to not be Margot Robbie because she just embodied it so perfectly. And also, I thought it was a really good hit because I've always agreed with it as well. In that John Cena is great when he's doing comedy, but he is totally wooden when he's trying to be serious. See F9.
All right. Mark, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
Yeah. You guys really did not want my vote today. Yeah, I guess I did go with Robert. I don't know. Like honestly, like Brian kind of mentioned it too. I felt like Robert was actually kind of smart in referencing other media, like and just kind of how he did it. I don't know. Like I did kind of buy into him bringing up. We've seen Harley Quinn a lot in the former DCU, and I think it, like at least John Cena's Peacemaker, I think just as a character and just kind of like who he is and just kind of as a personality and who he is, I think just kind of fits better in the world. I don't know, like Robert kind of had me on that one.
Okay, well that means your winner is Jacoby Bancroft. We are going to start with post-match interviews, starting with Robert. Robert, great match. Literally as close as it could get. We got a split decision down the middle without going to the bonus round, I guess, as close as it can get. Obviously, I know you are a man that likes to win and you beat yourself up when you don't, but I don't think you have any reason to beat yourself up because you played great today and you were intense without raising your voice, and I am proud of you. Robert, how are you feeling about the match?
Thank you. I'm a little spent. I've been up for a while, and it's been kind of a rough day. So I kind of didn't feel at my best. I was very impressed. I knew how good Jacoby was, but I was very impressed with how it is he fought the first fight. And I was like, I'm a little outclassed here with the first one. I was surprised to even get a vote, honestly. But the last three, I felt pretty good about. I was happy that we were able to get the fourth question. I was worried it was going to be a knockout. And I'm like, damn, I thought I did well enough for it not to be that. So I was happy that we at least got there. Jacoby's great. He really looks at things in a very insightful way. It's something to aspire to. I'm happy that everything was a split. So at least we were really close to tipping the scale to get into a speed round question. So I hope he feels that it was a tough row to hoe to go against me. That's just what I want. I want it to be tough for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert, this does mean that your time in this tournament is over, but this is not the last we have seen of you in Fanzone debate. I hope. If you have to come back, do you want someone like Jacoby or Cody again, or do you want someone new that you haven't played yet?
I think I'd like to debate Bill. I think it would be interesting. We're in the same faction. He has these takes that are so crazy to me, but I think they're crazy to me because Bill is of a certain singular mindset, which I very much respect, but I'm wondering how we would connect in that way. I do like the idea of playing people with different styles than me. And I thought Cody has a very distinct style, but I was able to keep him sort of at a level that wasn't the normal Cody level. I was very surprised. I guess that's, I just have a calming effect on people, but I think Bill, would be fun to debate.
Yeah. I'd love to see that. Let's see if we can make it happen. Robert, great job tonight. It was always lovely having you here. So we're going to bring in the winner, Jacoby. Jacoby, you have won round 2. You're moving into round number 3, or as I like to call it, the semifinals of the tournament. And we do know who you're playing, but first, before we get into that, I want to talk about how you feel you did in tonight's match. So how are you feeling, Jacoby?
Oh man, Robert just said I hope he feels like I put up. Yeah, no, I do feel that, Robert. This was so scary for me, and the way that you were presenting all those arguments, I do agree. I think I did pretty good on the first one. It's I got this. Okay, I some of those nervousness to get away, but then how you presented all 3 of these following arguments for the next 3 fights, I was like, shit. I felt like I was backpedaling. I felt like I was on my feet, and I felt it was because you just kind of kept attacking. And again, as I said at the beginning, so articulately stated and just well thought out and reasonable, which is so important to it. It's not just based off emotion. And so yeah, Robert has been the scariest opponent that I've faced in quite some time. I would think the ones who have most scared me. But I'm happy with my win. And I am always happy about winning and terrified about what comes next. But I will keep at it. I had a lot of fun with these ones. So thank you.
It's always fun to have
Bucky.
fun like Bucky is doing, barking at a balloon. Jacoby, you are going to be going up against the person who won the match that aired 2 weeks ago. Nice thing about Fanzone, we air every other week. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything, but you're going to be going up against Cameron Holtzman. He just beat Nazario in round 1. He beat Andrew Barr. So now you're going up against Holtzman. How are you feeling?
That one's going to be, they're all scary. I can't say like this one's going to be scary because they're all scary, right? Like they're all like that. But like Holtzman is just such a unique personality. Like he's so funny. Like I guess like the snarkiness that he has kind of gives way to like intelligent points and like well thought out like ways to go. And like the way that he can like probably cut you. Like if he says something snarky to me in the middle of a match, I'm going to be really sad and have my heart broken. And then I'm going to have to try to, keep on my toes. But like, I'm excited. I guess I haven't debated. It's just, see, in the debates I have to like really put in like the work and like this is what I'm going to say. But if you just ask me like how you feeling, I have like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but no, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be terrified, nervous, and it's gonna be a good time.
I'm looking forward to it. Jacoby, thanks for being here. Great job today. Great win. Let's get final thoughts starting with Mark.
This is a really good one. I think split decision all the way through. That one's always nice. I do have to point out that, I kind of love being in a match, like any sort of match, Jacoby, especially in debate, because he comes in here in the post-match and the pre-match. He's like, oh my God, I'm scared. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then he's in the ring and he just forcibly attacks. Like he kind of like attacks his game like a psychopath a little bit, just because like we just see both sides of the personality.
That's fair. Brian, final thoughts from you.
Well, that's one thing about Jacoby is I think that he his style of debate was the same as Robert's, and actually will be the same as Cameron's when he debates him. With that, it's not a lot of emotion. It's a lot of he's prepped. He has his stuff and he knows how to attack with it. He has defenses ready for everything you attack him with. He does very well. But like I said, Robert came prepared as well. Just in the chat, looking at the picks they all picked, like I loved every one of their picks for every question. So I was really curious where this debate was going to go, and it didn't disappoint.
Bucky's biting at a balloon. This is absolutely terrifying. So, guys, great job, Jacoby, to Robert. Thank you to Mark, and thank you to Brian for judging this one with me. I have been Tim. This has been Fanzone Debate. We'll see you guys next time with another great match. Bye.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.